Hello and welcome to another video. As you already know, if you've clicked on this video, today we are going to be going over my August TBR. Now, a while back, I said I was going to not be doing TBR, no, not TBR. We are doing my August wrap-up. There we go, Courtney. We're doing my August wrap-up this month. I kept saying I was not going to do wrap-ups anymore because of how often I, talk about these books in reading vlogs, and in the sake of not repeating myself, I was like, why do we need to do wrap-ups? But in the last couple months, I feel like I have had a lot of reads where I haven't really gotten to talk about them on here, and I want to. So we are indeed doing another wrap-up for this past month, which is August. Today is September 2nd, so hopefully these will be pretty fresh in my mind. Grab yourself a drink. I went and got myself a giant iced vanilla latte. These are dangerous. I have been getting these every single day for the last 4 days. It's interesting that my problem is also my idea of how to solve my problems. Let me first start by shutting the door, which I always forget to do. Now we can officially start to get into the 10 books, I think. 10 or so books that we read. It's a pretty big stack, so we have a lot to talk about, and this is not even including a couple of reads that I read on my Kindle that I don't have physical copies of here. In the month of August, we read 10 books. My average star rating was 4.4 stars. The approximate number of pages that I read were 4,513. Format-wise, 5 I read physically, 5 or 6 I read on my Kindle. And I say 5 or 6 because there are lots of times where I will read a book back and forth from the physical copy to the Kindle and whatever, but basically half and half. It was split between physical and Kindle reads. Genres, I read 4 fantasy, 4 adult fantasy, 4 adult romances, and then I read 2 YA books, and one of those YA books was a sci-fi. So yeah, that's the breakdown. Reading goal, we are now at 86 out of 80. So we have surpassed my goal for the year, and on Fable, I upped my goal, I think, to 120. I want to say that's what I upped it to, but on Goodreads, I haven't done anything with that, so I just keep writing 86 out of 80. But yeah, those are the stats for August. Now let's get back to the actual books that I read in August. I also need to start chugging this coffee because the ice is melting. Oh, so good. But yeah, so let's start at the very beginning of the month. I started off the month by reading Thorns and Fire by Helen Schurer, which is book 2 in the Ashes of Thesmar series, and this is her series that comes after Blood and Steel. So this series follows different characters. It follows Elren, or Ren, the sister of Thea from the first book. I really love this series specifically. I mean, I love Blood and Steel too for different reasons, but I think I like Ashes of Thesmar even a little bit better just because there is alchemy and an academy setting involved. And anytime there is magic and a school, 9 out of 10 times I'm going to love it. So this was no exception. I love this world that she's created. I love the characters and the romance between the 2 main characters in these books. I'm obsessed. Again, I'm not going to say too much about this because this is one of the ones that I read in the only vlog that I uploaded in August, which is my continuing series. I'm in the middle of episode 2. So if you want all of my detailed in the moment reading vlog thoughts, I would go watch that because I do talk more in depth about this one in there. I ended up rating this one 4.25 stars. Yeah, August was the month of me being really picky and annoying with my ratings, so I was giving a lot of partial ratings just because I could not figure out how I felt about a lot of these, but a lot of them were in the 4-star range. So I did rate this 4.25 stars. After Thorns and Fire, I did pick up both The Front Runner and False Start, both by Elsie Silver, which completed the Gold Rush Ranch series for me. This one, The Front Runner, was Stefan Delka's book, and this was I keep getting this wrong. I want to say book 3. Yeah, because I don't own the first book. So this is book 3, and like I said, it follows Stefan and Mira. And Stefan is kind of known as people don't like him in town. They have kind of the wrong impression of him. They think he's rich and sleazy and just not a good guy. And so I really loved getting his story in this one and seeing who he really is and seeing more of his vulnerable side. And then I really loved his relationship development with Myra. I don't know if I'm not saying that right. She is the family veterinarian, not Stefan's family veterinarian, but like the veterinarian of the family that like this whole series follows. Gold Rush Ranch, like that's the setting. I don't know, I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4.75 and I gave A False Start 4.5. So again, I was being very picky and annoying with the ratings just because in my head when I'm doing a rating books that are in the same series, I kind of like rank them, and so for me it makes sense that my favorite book is going to be higher than like my next favorite book, if that makes sense. So yeah, The Front Runner, love. I highly recommend the Gold Rush Ranch series if you just want like small town country-ish vibes. I wouldn't necessarily say that all of these are like cowboy romances like Chestnut Springs. Even Chestnut Springs isn't all cowboy romances though. But I would say that they give that same kind of feel-good vibe, right? Of like small town, you've got the horses, you've got the ranch, it's set in the country in Canada, and I'm a big fan. And then A False Start follows Nyaxia, which is Stefan's younger sister from this book, and Griffin, which is Stefan's best friend. So you have like the whole brother's best friend trope, which I really enjoyed in this one. There were a few things that annoyed me. Again, go watch my continuing series episode 2 if you want my in-depth thoughts on these. But there were a couple things that annoyed me about this one, but they're still like, it's still really highly rated, 4.5 stars. So yeah, I highly recommend this series if you do like small town or like cowboy romance series. The Gold Rush Ranch series is a good one, although Chestnut Springs still remains my favorite. Right after that, we did, in that same video, pick up Scarlet, which is book 2 in the Lunar Chronicles series by Marissa Meyer. Now this is like a YA sci-fi dystopian type of a series. The first book follows a cyborg and it's also a Cinderella retelling. So our main character's name is Cinder, and you kind of follow her on this journey as she's on a journey of like self-discovery. There's this bad queen who comes down from like the moon, and she's like the lunar queen. She's known to be ruthless and just not a good lady, right? And so much goes on in these books. They're very easy to read, but also fast-paced. So like, even though they're kind of chunky looking, you just fly right through them and it feels so satisfying. Honestly, for both Cinder and Scarlet, I was hooked, like from the beginning. Like this series was not a struggle at all to read, so I highly recommend, like if you are newly getting into fantasy and you want something that you don't have to like use a lot of brain power for but is still super fun, highly recommend this series. Scarlet, the retelling that goes along with this one is Red Riding Hood, because as you can tell, the main character here has like fiery red hair. There's like a wolf involved, you know, she's looking for her grandmother. I just love that this series takes those fairy tales, like takes aspects of those fairy tales very literally and puts them in these books, but yet also puts a, you know, more of a modern twist on them and creates an entire plot out of that. So yeah, I really love this series. Scarlet, I gave 4.5 stars. This is a high 4 stars series for me so far. And then I need to read Cress next, which I can't wait. I think that one's more of like a Rapunzel retelling, but it continues the same like storyline as these books. Obviously I can't get much into the plot of this one since it is the second in a series, and most of what I would want to say would be spoilery, so I'm not going to get into it. But again, go watch that video if you want more of my in-depth thoughts on it. Non-spoiler, of course. But yeah, that was that one. Oh, sitting on the floor, guys, is getting hard in my old age. This next one was also in that same video. I don't know how I read so many in one video, because next we picked up Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which I think is technically book 3 in the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent, but there is a novella in between the first 2 books. And then this book and The Fallen and The Kiss of Dusk follow different characters. Like you get Misha's story, which is a character that you see in the first 2 books. I really enjoyed this one more than I thought I was going to. I had heard a lot of people kind of had like mixed feelings on this one or were disappointed by this one. I, upon reading this, did not have any feelings of disappointment. I really loved getting Misha's story. I loved the love interest in this one. He's very dark and brooding and, you know, covered in these weird scar tattoo things, and the energy of this story and like the setting was just very dark and eerie. Like the underworld, right, is falling apart. And also the plot of this, of them having to descend into the underworld by going through all of these different sanctums that represent like the shedding of a piece of humanity. I thought that was really creative and fun and really drove the the plot along. And so yeah, I really loved the romance, like I said, the build up, the plot, all of it, the storytelling in the world. The one thing I will say in Carissa Broadbent's books is that sometimes she gets maybe a little bit too descriptive with things, and so I start to kind of lose sight of what I should actually be like visualizing. Like I almost can't visualize things sometimes if it's too descriptive. And I've heard people say that before, and I do kind of see that in her writing, but this one specifically, I was in the right mindset for it. I had a good time. So I would say if you like Carissa Broadbent's writing, you already know that, then I do recommend this one as well. And continuing on with the Crowns of Nyaxia series, I did go right into The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk, and I didn't like that one nearly as much, and I don't know if it's because I read them back to back, but I noticed that Carissa's writing in The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk was bothering me more than it was in Songbird. So do with that what you will. I rated Songbird and the Heart of Stone, I rated 4.25. And then Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk, I rated 3.5 stars because I wasn't feeling it anymore. I don't know what went wrong there. I can't even really remember everything that happened. I think that was another issue, is that there was just so much happening and so much that my imagination couldn't picture, that affected my enjoyment and like my rating of it. But it was still a good time. Like I don't regret reading. I do really, really recommend Songbird and the Heart of Stone. And then based on how that one ends, if you want to continue, then yeah, by all means continue. I liked Songbird better out of that duology. And then yeah, I don't think I talked about Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk so much in my continuing series video. I can't remember. I think I ended with Songbird and the Heart of Stone, but that was the end of the books that I've really talked about in August in vlogs. So these next ones are ones that I've really enjoyed and haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet. Love Arranged by Lauren Asher, which just came out in August, and I pretty much read it like the day that it came out or like the day after it came out. And this one is the third book in her Lakefront Billionaires series. And I really enjoy the series. I know that people have kind of mixed opinions on it and they don't love the series. I really enjoyed Love Redesigned and Love Unwritten, but I think my favorite in the series is still Love Unwritten. And I think that's the one that follows Ellie and the brother, maybe. My memory, guys, you already know, is not there. Is just not there. Something about me is I forget. This one follows Lorenzo and Lily. Lorenzo's another one of those guys that's kind of the town he's like misunderstood. He's like the town's scapegoat for all things evil. Like everyone thinks he's a bad guy. Everyone thinks he's doing nefarious things. People think he's in the mafia. And meanwhile, he's trying to run for mayor because he has some things in his past that are holding him back, and he thinks that if he becomes mayor, then he can right the wrongs of the past and all of that. And of course, along this journey, along the way, he meets Lily, who Lily, I believe, is the sister of Dahlia. I think it's Dahlia's sister, and Dahlia, I believe, is from the first book. So you get, you know, that interconnected small town family feeling, which is the whole point of an interconnected standalone romance series. So I loved that. I enjoyed Lily. There were things that annoyed me, though, about both characters. I can't remember everything that happened in this. I do remember Lorenzo, just their kind of like miscommunication, some of the things that he said to her I was like not a fan of. And so towards the end of the book I was kind of not over it, but not enjoying it as much as I was in the first half. So I did end up rating this one 4 stars. Still a fun series. It's still a 4-star series for me, but I would say I liked the other 2 better. This one also, by the way, is fake dating, fake relationship kind of a thing. If you like that, then I would definitely check this one out. But yeah, I also love this cover. Okay, I ran out of space on my other memory card, so I had to pop another one in, but where was I? I can't remember if I already said, but I rated this one 4 stars. And now we're moving on. So the next book that I picked up in the month of August was also my favorite read of August, and that is Nightshade by Autumn Woods. This was amazing. The vibes, the setting, just the feelings that I got. Like I was really in the mood for, you know, more of a fall read. Towards the end of August, I always start to crave fall. And so this was absolutely perfect for that because this is a dark academia set in the Scottish Highlands. There's a university. It's all these like rich kids, but all these weird accidental deaths happen near like the school, the castle grounds, whatever. And so, like I said, the setting really lends itself well to dark academia, and that overall like eerie spooky fall setting. I loved it. Like, there were, you know, ravens in the rafters, and you could hear the wailing of this woman who the school was built for, who the castle was built for at night. Like, you can hear her and stuff like that. So it's like those kind of vibes, you know, kind of like Haunted Mansion vibes, but it's a university, and I was obsessed with this. I rated this 5 stars. Again, favorite read of August. Everything about this was so good. The atmosphere, like I said, the plot was suspenseful, and there's like a mystery that you're trying to figure out the entire time. So you easily just move through this book, and I wanted to know more, but I wasn't rushing through it either because I wanted to savor every moment of this book. Like, I did not want this book to end. It was so good. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. So in this book, you have a dark tattooed MMC, and he, on the very first day of this semester, stumbles across this girl, Ophelia, who is at the school she's there trying to figure out what happened to her parents. Her parents died in this strange, like, death helicopter crash, and she's trying to figure out what the heck happened because they worked at Sorrow Song University. Growing up, they always told her, like, don't go near it. We don't want you to go there for school, go anywhere else. And so, of course, though, upon their death, she has to go and get into the school so that she can investigate their deaths. And lo and behold, she meets Alex Corbu Green, which is the son of her prime suspect. She thinks that the father is somehow involved, and of course she meets the son and does not like him at first for obvious reasons. As one does, you know, they start to fall for each other. And this was just absolutely perfect. There wasn't like too much romance. There was like just enough, and I just really love how, like, it's one of those books where, like, he kind of falls first, I would say. Then there's, oh, it's so twisty and turny, and then there's a cliffhanger at the end. So I really cannot wait for the next book in this series. But yeah, I would highly recommend this, especially reading this on a fall night with the windows open, a hot drink, a hot coffee or something, and a fall candle or multiple candles lit. Oh, chef's kiss. Cannot recommend anymore. Go read it. Go read it. That's all I can say. 5 stars for Nightshade. The next book that I picked up, because I was still in that, like, dark academia, but also I was in a fantasy mood, but I still kind of wanted, like, the school setting, I decided to pick up Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie. And this is a YA fantasy, but I've also heard it described as dark academia, which I don't necessarily, upon reading it, think that it is dark academia, but it's in an academy setting in a way. Like, you have all of these students who are living kind of in the afterlife. It's like an afterlife academy sort of thing, and they're like going to school and training so that they can become ascended, and the ascended help kind of shepherd lost souls crossed into the other side so that they can, you know, have peace and all of that. So it's kind of about, you know, death. A lot of the characters, most of the characters are obviously dead, and they go to this academy, which is called Blackwood Academy, but there's a lot of mysterious things going on. There is a decennial, which is a, you know, a competition that happens, or a celebration that happens only once in a while, once per decade or something. You have multiple point of views, like 6 of them, which seems like a lot at first, I know, but honestly, they don't get confusing at all because all of the characters are so distinctly different. And I don't know, the world is just like also very easy to understand and to fly through. And I just had the best time reading this, especially as I really started to get into it. I would say by like 20% in, like, I was really into it. I loved the multiple subplots of romance that we were getting. I loved all of our individual characters. Like I said, they were all very different. You have Irene, who's very like hot-headed. She's impulsive. She's kind of does what she wants. She's feisty. And then you have her best friend, Masika, who I still feel like I don't know or like remember that much about, but she is also not as hot-headed, but she's also kind of more similar to Irene. And then you have Ren, who's very studious, and, you know, she's a straight A student. She wants to be the best. She's doesn't break the rules really. And then there's August, who he also gets like top marks, but he's like infamous for being like the school's bad boy. Like, people look at him as he's walking by and then they like look away because they're afraid. They like don't want to catch his attention. And then there's Olivier, who's French and more of like, not like silly goofy, but way less serious vibes, and I love him. And then there's Emilio, and he's new to Blackwood Academy, and he's also kind of like that, you know, quiet, good kid, gets good grades, tries really hard. So you have all these different personalities, all these different young people who have somehow died, and now they're in Blackwood Academy trying to compete to become an Ascendant. And along the way, especially towards the end, some crazy things start happening. The way that this book ended, I was like, I need book 2. Like, I cannot wait for book 2, but I probably will need to reread just to kind of jog my memory and remember everything that happens, because so much happens towards the end. But yeah, this one I rated 4.5 stars, I want to say, because again, it was really, really good. I highly enjoyed this. Didn't quite get the 5-star feeling, but still highly recommend this. Like, this was so much fun. It's easy to read. It's not like a hard world to understand. So it's another one that I recommend. I don't know if I'd recommend it if you're first getting into fantasy, because when you're first getting into fantasy, you might not want multiple point of views written in third person. I don't know, but I thought honestly third person worked really well for this because of the multiple point of views. It kind of helped it to keep flowing so that you weren't like jolted back and forth trying to figure out whose eyes you were behind. It was very immersive. The writing was really good. I don't know if this is her debut novel. I really don't know. Don't quote me on any of this, but if it was, the writing, very impressive. Very, very good. I was gonna say that the vibes of this kind of reminded me of if you took like Harry Potter and then mixed it with, you know, Zodiac Academy and Fourth Wing kind of, but like less dragons kind of. Like you don't have like real dragons. But if you took all of those vibes and then like meshed them together, that's kind of how I was feeling as I was reading this. So yeah, highly recommend this one as well. This was really, really good and honestly took me by surprise. I bought this on a whim. Like, this was an impulse buy for me. I hadn't done much research on it, but I had to buy it because it was, you know, so beautiful. And then I ended up highly enjoying it. So yeah, this was another one of my favorites of the month. Like, all of my end of August reads were bangers. Nightshade, this one, and then the last one that I'm about to talk to you about, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This is one that I have seen so many people reading, so many people absolutely loving and raving about, and I also highly, highly enjoyed this. It wasn't quite a 5 stars, like I didn't get the 5-star feeling, but it was a high 4 stars, and I do highly recommend it. V.E. Schwab is one of my like newfound favorite authors. Ever since I read Darker Shades of Magic, I've just really been a fan of her writing. Like, her prose is so beautiful. And this story was no different. The first words that come to mind when I think about this story and its impact is that it was like primal and electrifying. Everyone throws around, you know, the term toxic lesbian vampires, which is true of this story, but I feel like there's so much more to it. Historical settings felt like historical fiction meets fantasy meets horror meets literary fiction. I don't know, this was like genre bending. I absolutely devoured it, but also savored it at the same time. Like, I read it kind of slowly, but in a good way. And this one follows 3 different characters. You have Maria in 1532 and her life and how she ends up having to make a desperate choice for a better life. And then you have Charlotte in 1827. And you have her story and her like journey to find love and where it ends up taking her. You also have more modern day. You have Alice in 2019 going to college in Boston and how she ends up in this, you know, world of like revenge and whatever. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but I feel like that kind of really explains our characters enough to kind of understand what's going on. I don't know, this book felt like poetry. I loved the feminine rage aspect. Like, with all 3 characters, you get a bit of that feminine rage aspect, and if you love books that have that, you're gonna love this. There were parts of this though that gave me a stomachache. You know, some of the scenes were horrifying, some of them were touching, and I know that some of the violence was necessary, but some of it wasn't. And so it is one of those books that really heavily makes you think about life and death and just the meaning of it all. And like, if you were to be given the choice to live forever, if you were given an eternity, like, what would you do with it? And how would that take away from what it means to be human, right? If you could live forever, what is the point and where is the beauty of being human? Because part of the beauty of being human and not living forever is that all of the moments that you do get, whether it's a high or a low, is made that much more beautiful by its brevity. And so I did really enjoy the messages in this book. There were so many beautiful quotes. Like I said, the writing felt like poetry. It was very lush and descriptive and just immersive, and I really, really loved this. Like a true work of art, it made me feel all the things. V.E. Schwab is an absolute master at writing and interweaving complex stories and complex characters, multi-layered characters. Like, these are not don't go into this thinking you're gonna get, you know, the most likable characters. Like, you will at points like certain characters, but she's also, they're very like flawed characters, and I don't know. I loved it. I ate it up. This, I can tell that this is going to be a book that haunts me for quite a while. I finished this probably, I don't know, 4 or so days ago at this point, and I'm still thinking about it. I also did want to mention this, you might recognize this was on my September TBR, and yet I'm putting it in my August wrap up. And that's because I simply could not wait till September to read this. And I did finish it by August 30th, so I wanted to include it in my August wrap up. This is part of my September TBR. I just read it early because some of these videos, you know, I record ahead of time so that I can post them for you guys. So that is why, if you're wondering why this is on my September TBR, but I read it in August, that's why. Love this, highly recommend it. I think I also gave this one 4.5 stars specifically. Again, I didn't quite, like, there was a little bit of something missing for me to give it a 5 stars, but then again, if I keep finding myself thinking about it, I might up it to 5 stars, just because any book that, you know, sticks with me like that is worth the 5 stars in my mind. But this is incredible. Like, highly, highly, highly recommend. Just know that it kind of does have a little bit of a slower pace to it, more of like I said, if you're in the mood for like literary fiction, something that really packs a punch, highly recommend. And also, this is the perfect book for fall and spooky season. Like, I cannot recommend this one enough. That is all 10 books. Oh wait, I also had one DNF, and I can't remember what order or like what books I tried reading this one in between. But I did try picking up Her Night at the Museum by Bryn Donovan. And I don't know if I just wasn't in the mood for it or what, but it was so silly, goofy, and kind of cringy in the first 40 pages that I couldn't do it. I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it. Like, this follows a knight who's in the museum, and she's like restoring him, and he comes to life. But like, the way that it happens in the first 50 pages and how like lust forward it is, I was just not vibing with it. I don't know. It has such a cute cover too, so I'm sad. But this was a DNF for me in August. So I can't really say much about it because I didn't get very far. Those are all of the books that I managed to read in August. I had a lot of, like I said, really good reads, especially like all my favorites were towards the end of the month. The last 3 books that I read, I think, kind of put me in a reading slump, because in the last week since finishing these, I've had a hard time picking other things up in the best way, because again, those were just amazing books. So highly recommend those 3. I would love to know what you guys read in the month of August. What was your favorite read of August, or what was your least favorite read? Have you read any of these? What were your thoughts on them? I want to know all the things. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, my links for like my Bookstagram and stuff like that are below if you want to check those out. I love you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!